There he is.
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you? It's nice
Trying
to
to figure
see
out a
you.
spot. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Um, tell me where you are right now. Are you in a car?
I'm sitting in my van. I figured probably everyone else is sitting in their living room or somewhere like that. I parked my van right in front of my house, and I am sad that I don't get to drive it all over the place right now. So I decided I would sit in my van to do this interview.
Perfect. It's like we're going on tour. All right. So tell us who you are,
Yeah, it's a
where
road
you
trip,
are.
but going nowhere.
Tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
All
Can you
right,
hear me at
so
all?
I'm MC.
There we go.
That's how everyone's known me for like 25, 30 years. Um, I'm in York, Pennsylvania. I play in a punk band called Olde Tigers, and I book more than my fair share of shows at our practice space, the Skid Row Garage, as well as JB Love Drafts in Harrisburg, occasionally the Chameleon Club in Lancaster, uh, wherever I can do it when I need a spot. So,
I'm thinking that today, or this particular chat, is going to be the best chat happening of the day of the day's interviews. I think the chat's going to be really good for this one. So I'm sorry to
I hope
anybody
so.
watching this after the fact that you don't get to read along with the chat. Um, tell me how, I know you've been really busy with work. Tell me how you're spending, the time that most of us are at home. How are you spending your time?
So so I work at Lowe's, and we're still open. We're essential. I'll use quotes because most of the things people are there buying are definitely not essential. No one needs 5 gallons of paint in a pandemic. But I've been working up until this week, the 7 weeks since Governor Wolf put the stay-at-home order in place. I worked 6 days a week, 50 plus hours, which was great for my bank account and not great for probably my mental sanity. But I guess it helped me get through, because if I had to sit at home and do nothing for 7 weeks, I might have like I would make a joke about killing myself, but that's not like a good joke. But I would have driven myself freaking insane sitting around not having an outlet to do anything. I mean, I don't know how some people are doing it. I know, like, I'm jealous some days when I see people posting on Facebook or wherever that, oh, I'm bored. I did this today. I watched this many shows, and it kind of infuriates me that I'm like, oh my God, I'm like working my ass off. My feet hurt every day. I've been walking like 8 miles in a building. But at the same time, I'm glad that I'm not in their situation, because I'm not a person that can sit around. I mean, even when I'm working a normal schedule, you know, my band's playing a few shows a month. I have a show at the garage or somewhere else almost once a week, if not more. This time of the year, it would probably be 6 or 8 a month. So I'm nonstop, and I can't imagine having to just slam on the brakes to uh, sit at home like so many of these other people have had to.
Yeah, although I think Celie would probably love to have you home more, huh?
Oh, for sure. My girlfriend's been off work for about the last 5 weeks because of some like asthma and other health issues she has. So she's erring on the side of caution, as many people should be if they're able to. So the dog is very happy that people are home all day. I saw a meme where it said something along the lines of, the dog thinks you quit your job to hang out with them all day, and the cat thinks you got fired like the loser they always knew you were. But so like that, yeah, the cat is kind of annoyed that we're home all day, and the dog's really happy about it. So
Yeah. You keep up a really crazy schedule of shows at the garage. You said you would be having maybe 6 or 8 a month this time of year under normal circumstances. Talk to me about the garage a bit. Tell me
so
how, I mean, you're in 10 years in doing this, right?
well, this summer will be theoretically the 11th year if we're ever allowed to do it again, which I'm not that optimistic right now about when we'll be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's literally my garage, so I'm able to book shows and do things in the absolute most ethical way that I could, which is giving all the money to the bands and only booking shows that I like and bands that I want, rather than having to ever worry about, is this show going to make money? I could book a band that I like that's coming through on tour, and if 15 people show up, you know, the 100 or 150 bucks that comes through the door goes into their hands. They get a place to crash. Most of the bands that I know, I let crash here because, you know, they're my friends. Um, and they get to go on to the next spot having food in their belly, full tank of gas, a little bit of extra money, and you know, having played a fun show in, you know, a small venue where, you know, sometimes 15 people feels like a lot when the room is small. I mean, we can shove 100 people in there and it's insanity, but it's also like a small enough space. I mean, it's our practice space. For people that don't know, it's a practice space that's probably about 12 feet wide, and the main room is about 20 feet long. So it spills over into the rest of my garage when we have a lot of people, but it's an intimate room. So, you know, if 15 people are there and everyone's standing close, you know, if you've been to small shows, that feels like a good time if it's in the right room. If you're in a room that holds 400 people and you have 15 people, you feel like you're nobody's home and you're playing in a warehouse.
Yeah. Tell
But,
me, in the 11 years you've been doing this, what are some standout, like really memorable experiences you've hosted there?
so early on, one of the biggest, like, kind of weirdest things that fell into my lap was Hawthorne Heights played the garage. Um, they were supposed to play in Allentown. I think it was the Croc Rock. Tickets weren't selling as fast as the venue expected, so the venue kind of did the buyout option on the contract. Bought them out like 48 hours before the show, paid like half the contract, washed their hands of the show. One of the opening bands on that tour was Handguns, who I've known since they started. I've known Jake, their guitar player, since he was like a teenager in Hanover. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, can we do this show at the garage? The bands will play. It was a 6-band tour package, which is insanity. But they were all backlining, sharing gear. So it was like a weekday, like April 3rd, I think it was, 2010, 2011. I don't remember exactly. But he hit me up late at night on April Fool's Day, and I kind of thought it was a joke. So this all came together kind of overnight. The morning, we're locking down the details, and less than 24 hours before the show, we made an announcement. We're like, hey, we're going to do this. It's at a place called Skid Row Garage. So, you know, this band that had a hit song on MTV and, you know, like, I don't know, probably a platinum record. I've never looked that up. I'm sure it was. I mean, they were big at the time. At one time, they came through and played a room that held about 100 people, and they were stoked. Like, the crowd was literally crawling over top of the band while they were playing. A few other like big things or like really cool things come to mind. What other ones? The 10-year anniversary show last year, I got one of my all-time favorite hardcore bands, Kill Your Idols, who is, I mean, they're not even an active band right now. They are kind of not broken up, but they sort of are at the point in their career where they do a lot of the big festivals. They do a handful of festivals every year, and they do a benefit fest up in Long Island every year. And I hit them up. I was like, hey, so-and-so had told me that you guys might be interested in doing this. I was like, you've always been one of my favorite bands. Gave them the whole spiel about what was going on and ended it with, I think it would be rad to see you guys play a DIY spot like I saw you in 15 years ago when I fell in love with the band. And over the course of about a week, it all came together and they decided to do it. And we put together a show where, unfortunately, it ended up being the hottest weekend of the year last year. It was like 98 degrees at 10 o'clock at night when the band went on outside. And I had 2 ACs in the garage cranking for like 36 hours before the show. But it was like everyone was drenched in sweat, but they had a blast. Other cool shows, my good friends, the Virus, came through and played a couple times since they got back together. Actually wearing Nightbirds. They played here. I want to say it was like 2017 now. It was a few years ago. But the cool thing about them playing here, they played here a Saturday night. the following weekend they were playing on Broadway in New York City with the Descendants, and they had messaged me later and sort of just a back and forth saying they think it's really rad that they're at a spot where they can do the little DIY show to 150, 115, 120 people, whatever, and then follow it up playing a sold out show to thousands of people with the Descendants in New York at like a venue that they never imagined they'd be playing. And I can't even name, I mean, I could sit here and name the hundreds of other smaller bands over the years that have, you know, been great. So many bands have come through here that have gone on to become bigger, play big festivals. I mean, the Fest down in Florida is a punk festival every year. I looked at their like alumni bands that have played, and there are probably 50 plus that have come through the garage at some point. Like This Is Hardcore every year, like bands that have played here end up playing there later. What is it? Puza up in Montreal. That was supposed to happen in May. Might even have been like this weekend or somewhere around this weekend. A lot of bands have come through that have played there, went on to play there. It's just wild to be able to see bands that start out playing to, you know, 15 or 20 people, and then they come back and there's 30, and then they come back and I've got to put them in a bigger room, and then I get to not even be able to book them here anymore because we just can't do it. So
I love that. And I think what you do is so incredibly important for a lot of reasons to a lot of people in this area and to the bands that tour. You know, it's very much in line with the sensibility and values of the series that I run. It's just, we deal in different genres and different scenes, but I really love what you do. And what do you think, you know, once the restrictions are lifted and it's safe to gather again, do you envision anything changing with how you move forward with shows? What are you expecting for when you get back into it?
So I'm going to be honest. I don't see us being normal for like, I've said probably March of next year is my guess as to when some sense of actual normality will return, if that's even a thing that'll happen. But what I've sort of thought about is for shows going forward, number one, if we're allowed to gather at some point this year safely, everyone's going to be wearing a mask. I spoke with some of my friends last night on a video chat that one of the bands that has played here is this band called Round Eye, and they're from Shanghai, China. So they're right in the heart of the Wuhan province where this all came through. And for like 2 months, I saw those guys posted online. It was just a lot of bad, negative, like, this is the worst experience. Like, I can't believe, like, China came down with restrictions hard, and they were enforcing them harder than Americans would probably ever accept. But towards the end of April, their singer Chachi had posted, hey, I get to go out to a local show tonight, see some of my friends, bands are playing. And I saw some of the pictures he posted, and, you know, everyone's wearing a mask. It's a smaller venue, probably 50 to 100 people. Bands are wearing masks, but they got to go out and do it because they got through it the right way. You know, I'm thinking about the logistics of it as far as like, hey, I've run a spot where people would gather. What can I do to help? And the first thing I did when this all started, and I do it fairly regularly anyway, just because of the volume of people and touring bands coming through, is I unscrewed the cap off of every one of my mics, and I made a bleach water solution, and I soaked them in there overnight. I do that normally once a month anyway, just because, like, it's kind of gross if you actually stop and think about how many people use a microphone in a venue. I use my own mic whenever we go anywhere. I take it with me and plug it in and hand the house mic to the sound guy. But so that's going to have to be done after every show. Realistically, some sort of covering should be on the mic, whether it's an old sock that just gets replaced between bands, or you spend the money on those like foam covers. I don't know that either of them is going to be super effective. Between, like, if I was singing first and then you were next and we switched them out, neither one's going to be highly effective. It's more of a peace of mind kind of thing. I don't know. Definitely seeing bands hand the mic into the crowd, I don't think is going to be a smart move anytime soon. It's And on the other side of it, I as far as like the people going to shows, I've often sat here and thought, and I've had this conversation, like we were talking about the fest down in Florida and how there's one of the few that seem to be still gung-ho booking bands, making announcements. They're at the end of October, and maybe they'll be able to pull it off and not have it canceled. But like, if I'm a patron, do I feel safe going to a festival with 3 to 4 to 5,000 people flying in from all over the world, bands from all over the world, being in tight venues? I don't know. I'd like to say that I want it. Like I love the lineup for the fest this year. There's a lot of bands I want to see, especially in like the mid-tier bands. The headliners are always, you know, the headlining like melodic pop, not pop punk like Blink-182, but the more melodic punk stuff that, you know, it's fun to see. But I've seen most of those bands that I wanted to see. A lot of the mid-tier bands I'm really stoked on, but I just don't know that if the time came, like if they said right now you can go to the fest next weekend, I don't think I would go, because it's just not worth the risk. And I fear a lot of people are going to be having to make that call when the time comes. Like if I was able to go to a restaurant right now and sit down and eat, I'd be super stoked on that idea. But I know that when I'm at work and there's 15 people waiting in line and they're crowding in, and I have to cut through to get to somebody to help them with a problem or do whatever, I don't panic, but there's definitely the thought in my mind, get through this quickly. I don't want to be around people that tight. You know, all those guidelines that we've been given are in the back of your head. And until there is realistically a vaccine or some sort of cure for this disease, medicine that works to treat it so that the people that get it aren't dying or getting their lungs, you know, destroyed, or all these other things that are creeping up, like people in their 20s and 30s are having strokes when they're otherwise like not showing symptoms. Until there's something that stops that, or there's such widespread testing that you know very, very well that, you know, these people don't have it and they're allowed to be out. Or, I mean, the other side of this is sad, is basically everyone gets it. The people that are going to perish, and the rest of us kind of have herd immunity, which that's not an option. I think is, unfortunately, I think some people want that to be an option, but I don't think it's a realistic option. But until one of those things happens, I don't see a majority of people returning to normal life at all. I mean, yeah. I know there's places where restaurants have reopened, but pretty much they're sitting empty.
Yeah.
I hate to be the Debbie Downer on that, but it's...
No, but you're right. I've been thinking about this all morning. I've been thinking about this a lot today because there is a restaurant in New York that is open for Mother's Day.
I saw
and
that.
People are going to it. And I mean, it's only going to make this take longer.
Yeah.
You mentioned China. The reason they were able to gather safely is because they locked down and everyone did it. If we don't all do it, it's not going to work. Everybody has to do it. All right, let's switch gears here. Have you gotten, I know you're working 50 hours a week or more, have you gotten to listen to much music at all in your off time?
Not a whole lot. I actually have been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, right before this all started. I don't know why I got hooked on a lot of cult and that type of like documentaries on Netflix and Amazon Prime, and listening to them on podcasts. Not just Last Podcast on the Left either, although like those guys do a lot of research and it's a great place to start. Picking up some books and stuff as well. So I've kind of done deep dives into podcasts of that variety. A lot of the stuff I've listened to recently has been the same like 25, 30 bands I've listened to for the past however long I've been into not mainstream music. But I do throw on my, I have a couple playlists I make to when I was doing shows to support the bands. I have a Skid Row Garage playlist where it's all the bands that are playing our upcoming shows. So I've been putting that on because it's a good way to find some new music or some local bands that are, you know, playing around that I don't always, I mean, I see them, but I, you know, I'm running people to the bathroom, taking money at the door, doing this and that. I don't always get to just sit back and enjoy the bands that play. So getting to listen to them is nice. I have another one that I make of all the bands that Olde Tigers is playing shows with, which is cool because that gets us outside of just the immediate area, gets some different bands. And we've been lucky enough right before this all started to play with some of like our, you know, bigger bands, older bands that have, you know, been doing it a lot longer. We played with the Addicts in January. We played with DOA in March, like days before Governor Wolf did the stay-at-home order. You know, we're supposed to play with the Virus in June. I don't see that happening. I hope it does, whether it's with masks or whatever. We made that announcement for that show right before the stay-at-home order too, and like as soon as that happened, I was like, well, the virus, stay-at-home order, pandemic, I don't know, it's funny. I've been wearing my Virus shirt every time I'm out and about, so just trying to have some fun with it. But so I've been listening to a lot of, you know, the bands that we're supposed to either play here or we were supposed to be doing shows with, so I can, I don't know, get them a couple listens on Spotify so they get their pennies. I put my laptop on one of those playlists when I'm not home and just put it on repeat, so all those bands get, you know, an extra 50, 60 plays a day or whatever, because being in a band, I know that if you don't get plays, you don't get money on Spotify, and even the money you do get is minuscule. So I've also been listening to a couple random homework assignments. I've been doing this 2 Beats Off podcast with Steven, who plays drums in Olde Tigers, and Justin from his other band Reservoir. And we kind of got in a rut being stuck with not having a whole lot of music to talk about because of, you know, the stay-at-home order. So we've been sort of listening to new record from bands that have come out somewhat recently and just talking about it. And we listened to like the Code Orange new record,
which I love.
I'd never actually listened to that band like intentionally, and when I listened to it, I the first thing I thought was, in my head, this is what Slipknot sounds like. I've never really listened to Slipknot either, so in my head, that's what Slipknot sounds like. And then the guys told me, well, they do a lot of like stuff with the WWE, and I was just like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Like that record sounds like wrestling music, like what I imagine people hear when they're at an arena watching wrestling. And Brian Fallon was another one, which I'd never really got into his band, Gaslight Anthem. I'm familiar with them, but never really got into them. I made a joke about that record. I said, guys, he's a good songwriter. It's fun. Yeah. But like, I fear that Brian Fallon record, I'm going to hear about 1,000,000 times over the next few months, because like 40% of the guys in bands are sitting at home with an acoustic guitar thinking that they're the best singer-songwriter in the world right now. And trust me, guys, you're not. I mean, it's sad, but there are very few people who can like really excel just playing a good acoustic guitar and like pouring their heart out. Like, you got to be, one, a great musician, and two, like, you got to have a way with words that a lot of us don't. I see Boots just commented, and he's one of my favorite singer-songwriters locally, because he like sells things and is passionate. And I've seen him when he wasn't a great musician, and now he is a very, very good musician. He plays multiple instruments, and he's always fun to watch. But like, I think of like probably the biggest one that I think of is Frank Turner, who I know you love, and like, he's got a way with words that is like almost untouchable is in like the singer-songwriter world. Like, he's tells a story in a way that, you know, a lot of writers wish they could. And he's, you know, a talented musician. He's put together an amazing band to back him up when he does the full band stuff. But like, so that was one. And then I was supposed to listen to the new Alkaline Trio EP, but I ended up having to work late that night, so I didn't get to record that episode with them, and I didn't get to listen to that. But you know, that's kind of been fun, listening to some bands that are in the like wheelhouse of the type of music I like, but maybe I've never really gotten into. And with each one, I sort of go back and like Code Orange and went back and listened to Code Orange Kids albums, and I listened to their first couple records. And Brian Fallon, I went back and listened to the first Gaslight album. I listened to the big songs off of the 59 Sound, and then I listened to like a couple songs off of his solo records to get an idea of, you know, where the new one was at compared to stuff. And
Sure.
but yeah, other than that, like I've been at work listening to whatever random like Whitney Houston song they're playing at the time.
Could be a lot worse than Whitney Houston.
Yeah, we did do, when we were first doing all the like social distancing signage at work and stuff, and we were limiting the number of people in the store. We had the cones set up outside 6 feet apart, so people had a visual idea to like, this is how far you should be. And we put one of the Bluetooth speakers outside, and we were playing "Don't Stand So Close to Me" on repeat, which was fun until like, you know, you were outside the 5th time of the day and you've heard that song like 9 times. It gets old, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, the last guy that I interviewed, Sammy K, right before I talked to you for my first interview of the day, and he talked a lot about Gaslight, and he talked about his oldest stepdaughter bought a ticket for the fest this year.
Nice.
She was so excited to go to fest, but brother, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it happening. Florida might allow it to happen because
Florida.
Yeah, Florida allows a lot of wild stuff. I was down there for a friend's wedding in October, and Lane and I went down to Orlando the week before and did like, you know, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and Universal, and, you know, hung out and did, you know, touristy things for a little bit. And then we drove from Orlando to Jacksonville, and it's about a 2-hour drive through kind of middle of nowhere, northern Florida. And there's a lot of weird stuff, like places where you can just drive construction equipment and crush things, places where you can shoot all kinds of guns. Obviously, everyone that has Netflix knows that Florida has a lot of exotic animal rescues.
Sure.
There was a big cat rescue. There's 3 or 4 in the area of Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. Not just Carol Baskin killed her husband.
I've seen photos of you with alligators, haven't I?
Oh yeah.
That's right.
We did Gator World too. I got my picture sitting on an alligator, and yeah, you know, we did the touristy stuff. We hit 2 of the lighthouses. We did the Ponce de Leon Inlet Lighthouse, which I think is the tallest one in Florida. And then we hit the St. Augustine Lighthouse, which is haunted apparently. So yeah, we had a good time doing touristy Florida things and not doing the construction equipment smash up guns and ammo Florida thing, which might have been fun too. Maybe next time.
Real quick, before I ask this last question, tell me, I know you collect koozies. How many koozies do you have in your collection?
I don't even know at this point. I don't have an idea. When I just had them in a drawer in my kitchen, it was over 100. But now, my poor girlfriend, she puts up with this. I have a drawer in the kitchen full. She has like 2, probably like 1 foot by 6 inch by like 4 or 5 inches deep, like Tupperware, or not Tupperware, but like Rubbermaid, like storage containers, shoved full of them. There's a basket in the living room that's overflowing with koozies. I have a koozie in like every jacket pocket of every jacket I own. They're everywhere. It kind of started as a joke on tour in, I think it was 2008. We were in Orlando, and we actually had to replace the water pump on our van in Richmond in a parking lot of an Advanced Auto. So we missed a show, and we drove from Richmond to Orlando straight through to hit our Orlando show the next day. And we were just hanging out at our buddy's house, you know, got there early, had a day off, and they had put up a drop cloth on the front of their house from the second story balcony, and had a projector out that they were playing video games and movies on. I was just wandering around because I'm not a video game guy. And the neighbor was out there just kind of talking to us, and he had that like little bit of like Southern drawl, but not like real bad. But he was so Florida. He kind of like, not really a mullet, but kind of longer hair back, and no shirt, and, you know, torn up ratty blue jeans. And he was just like, he saw we were drinking PBR. He's like, oh my God, I got to take you back here. He drags me behind his house. So I'm just walking off into people's backyard at night in downtown Orlando. Yeah, it was strangers. And he goes back there, and he has a shed that he has turned into a little tiki bar in his backyard. And he's like, he goes in there, flips on the light, and he's like, have a seat. So I grab, you know, bar stool. I'm sitting there. I'm just like wondering what he's going to pull out here. He's like, just be careful though. Frank tends to bite. And I'm like looking down for a dog or something. No, it's a rooster sitting on the other end of the bar. That's Frank. And he's digging through, and he pulls out this like moldy old PBR koozie and throws it on my beer. And I've kept that koozie. It's still in the house. Like, it's one that I don't let people touch just because, like, it's kind of the one that started it all. And ever since then, it's kind of just been a thing. Like, anywhere I go, I grab a koozie, or bands always, like, bands that have koozies, I'm buying a koozie, whether I like your band or not. Like, whether I actually get to see your band play or not, you have a koozie, I'm going to have it. It's, like, it's, I don't even know. It's gotten to a weird point. I'm ordering koozies off like Instagram pages now. Like this Joe Exotic for President again was one that I saw somebody post on Facebook or Instagram, and I was like, I have to have that. Like it's too funny not to, I guess. But yeah, I have koozies from all kinds of random stuff, and I found a couple koozies. Like I found somebody's like a koozie that was promoting their wedding in like a lawn in somewhere on tour, and I just snagged it out of the lawn and was like, well, I got this now. Yeah, it's weird, but I guess everyone has the dumb thing they collect. I mean, I know people that have all kinds of dumb collections of stuff. If you watch Hoarders, it's not that bad in my house. I don't have like
not yet
taking over. I do want to get them all out at one point and just get a picture of them. But I don't know where I could like.
Or you could make like a throne of koozies and a picture of you sitting on it, them all around you.
The Koozie King. Look out, Netflix.
There you go. All right. So tell us how people can find out more information about you, the garage, the things you care about most. How do they keep in touch?
So social media is obviously where we're all keeping in touch right now. MC Hyser on Facebook. I have 2 Facebook pages because, long story short, Facebook doesn't let you promote things without having more than one page to actually be able to invite people to events and stuff. Anybody that has tried to invite 100 people to an event gets probably cut off at about 50. So I have 2 Facebook pages. I'm on Instagram under MC Hyser is my personal one. Skid Row Garage has the Instagram for all the show stuff that is kind of bleak and empty right now, but hopefully get to promote some stuff soon. Olde Tigers, OLDE, like Old English, Tigers. Facebook, Instagram, we're everywhere there. Spotify, you can find our music. I've still been promoting the playlist and stuff on Instagram and Facebook, trying to get other people to listen to the bands that were supposed to play here. And then the podcast I mentioned I've been doing with the guys is 2 Beats Off podcast, which is not a masturbation reference, I found out. It is a Fugazi reference.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
sure.
We've made that joke a bunch on the podcast, but yeah, we've been doing that and having fun, getting to kind of, you know, virtually hang out and talk in a time when we haven't gotten to do a whole lot of that. So that's been fun. And getting to every episode we have an interview with somebody involved in the music scene. We've had you know, guys that run record labels. Guys that are in bands. One of my favorite interviews was oh my God, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's been a merch guy and tour manager for a lot of bands, and hearing kind of that side of the story was really fun. We've recently interviewed Sonny from Hate 56, who films a lot of hardcore shows and like not just hardcore shows. I mean, he does a lot, but he's mainly known for filming a lot of the big hardcore fests and shows. And he was really fun to talk to because he actually has a special fondness for York, and not for music or anything, but because he's into like Flatland BMX. And apparently early in the BMX days, there was a group of Flatland BMX guys that kind of like invented Flatland BMX, and they were from York. and they still
Good
host
shit.
events here. I never knew that. I've been here my whole life. When he started talking about BMX in New York, I assumed he was going to talk about the skate park that everyone knows about. And he was like, no, man, like this Flatland BMX group, I come to York every year to.
Is that up at Rudy, the one at Rudy Park?
I don't know where they do it. They do it. It's parking lots. He doesn't go to the skate park. He has never been to the skate park, which shocked me.
Huh. Yeah, I know that I live close to Rudy Park, a county park that has a huge BMX track course. I don't even know the vocabulary for it, but packed all the time. And they do like not late night, but nighttime things where you can see the big lights like in a stadium up there. So they're doing it at night.
Here's a Dorkin in York. Dave Mirra used to hang out in York, apparently, doing a lot of the Flatland BMX stuff. Jake is commenting. So, yeah, I mean, I never really knew that happened here in York. So that was fun to learn something about your hometown in an interview.
That's cool.
That's really about, a guy that films bands all over the world and has made a living out of it. So,
yeah, what a small world.
Yeah.
Well, for anybody who's listening in, I'm doing these on the hour every Sunday until we're allowed to leave the house again safely. The next one coming up at 2 p.m. is with Ali Awan out of Philly. He has played Cable House. And then 2 more after that this afternoon, and then I'm already scheduling for next week. So, MC, thank you for taking the time to hang out in your van with me. And,
yeah, no, thank you.
I can't wait till things get back to normal and we can do shows again. I can maybe have you and Lane over for dinner. That would be cool.
Absolutely. It was fun getting to drink a beer in my van, like I was supposed to be in a state 3 hours away somewhere.
Yeah, someday we'll get to do that again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm patient. Patience. Just got to get through it.
Yep. So. Yep. All right, brother. Well, you take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.